Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, toes curling against the cool hardwood floor. The mirror across the room beckoned, and Anne couldn't resist checking her reflection. Long chestnut hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing a face that was both familiar and foreign. She traced the curve of her cheek, marveling at the softness of her skin. A knock at the door interrupted her reverie. "Anne, honey, are you awake?" Her mother's voice carried through the wood, gentle and reassuring. "Yes, Mom. I'll be down in a minute," Anne called back, her newly trained voice still a source of wonder. She quickly pulled on a pair of jeans and a soft blue sweater, running a brush through her hair before heading downstairs. The kitchen was alive with the aroma of coffee and toast. Her mother stood at the counter, pouring a mug of steaming liquid. She turned as Anne entered, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Good morning, sweetheart. How did you sleep?" Anne slid onto a stool at the kitchen island. "Pretty well, actually. I think I'm finally getting used to everything." Her mother set the mug in front of her, squeezing her shoulder gently. "I'm so proud of you, Anne. You've been so brave through all of this." Anne wrapped her hands around the warm mug, inhaling the rich scent. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. Or Becky," she added, thinking of her sister's unexpected support. As if on cue, Becky burst into the kitchen, her blonde hair a mess and her pajamas askew. "Did someone say my name? Are you talking about how awesome I am again?" Anne rolled her eyes, but couldn't suppress a grin. "You wish. We were just discussing how you snore like a freight train." Becky gasped in mock offense, snatching a piece of toast from the plate on the counter. "I do not! Take that back or I'll... She paused, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I'll tell Mom about that cute boy you were eyeing at the mall yesterday." Anne felt her cheeks flush, the heat creeping up her neck. "Becky?" she hissed, glancing nervously at her mother. Their mom raised an eyebrow, an amused smile playing at her lips. "Oh, and who might this young man be?" "No one," Anne mumbled, suddenly finding her coffee incredibly interesting. "Becky's just being... Becky!" Her sister plopped down next to her, nudging her with an elbow. "Come on, sis. You've got to get back out there sometime. You can't hide behind those textbooks forever." Anne sighed, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm not hiding. I'm just... adjusting. It's not easy, you know? Everything's different now." Her mother's expression softened. "We know, honey, but Becky's right. You can't put your life on hold forever. Maybe it's time to think about college again." The thought sent a flutter of anxiety through Anne's stomach. She'd deferred her acceptance to State University when she'd decided to transition, unsure of how to navigate this new identity in a college setting. Now, with summer drawing to a close, the prospect loomed larger than ever. "I don't know," she said hesitantly. What if people find out? What if they don't accept me?" Becky threw an arm around her shoulders. "Then they're idiots and we'll kick their butts." "Right, Mom?" Their mother shook her head, but her eyes twinkled with amusement. "While I don't condone violence, I do agree with the sentiment. Anne, you are a beautiful, intelligent young woman. Anyone would be lucky to know you." Anne felt a lump form in her throat, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding her. "Thanks, guys. I'll think about it." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity. Anne helped clean up the kitchen, then retreated to her room to work on some pre-college math problems. She'd always excelled in academics, and it felt good to lose herself in the familiar world of numbers and equations. As the afternoon sun began to slant through her window, Anne heard the doorbell ring. Curious, she set aside her textbook and made her way downstairs. She froze halfway down the steps, her heart leaping into her throat. Standing in the entryway, chatting animatedly with her mother, was Emma Larson. Emma had been Anne's best friend since middle school, back when Anne was still someone else. They'd drifted apart during Anne's transition, the weight of her secret creating an insurmountable barrier. Emma looked up, her bright green eyes widening as she spotted Anne on the stairs. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I was just dropping off some books for Mrs. Thompson and—" Anne's mother turned, a knowing smile on her face. "Anne, honey, why don't you come down and say hello to Emma?" For a moment, Anne couldn't move. Her palms were sweating, and she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. But then she saw the gentle encouragement in her mother's eyes, and she found the strength to descend the remaining steps. "Hi, Emma," she said softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear nervously. Emma's brow furrowed in confusion. "I'm sorry. Do we know each other? You look familiar somehow." Anne exchanged a glance with her mother, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Taking a deep breath, Anne squared her shoulders. "Emma, it's me. It's Andy." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's eyes widened, her gaze sweeping over Anne from head to toe. "Andy? But how? I don't understand." Anne's mother stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Emma, why don't you and Anne go up to her room and talk? I'm sure you have a lot to catch up on." Emma nodded dumbly, still staring at Anne as if she couldn't quite believe her eyes. Anne led the way upstairs, her heart hammering in her chest. As they entered her room, she gestured for Emma to take a seat on the bed while she settled into her desk chair. "So," Emma said after a long moment, "you're a girl now?" Anne nodded, twisting her hands in her lap. "Yeah, I've always felt like I was in the wrong body. Last summer after graduation, I decided to do something about it." Emma's expression was unreadable. "Why didn't you tell me? We were best friends, Andy." "Anne, I thought we told each other everything." The hurt in Emma's voice was like a knife to Anne's heart. "I wanted to," she said softly, "so many times. But I was scared. I didn't know how to explain it or how you'd react. I was afraid of losing you." Emma was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on her hands. When she finally looked up, there were tears shimmering in her eyes. "You could never lose me, you idiot. I wish I could have been there for you. It must have been so hard going through all this alone." Relief washed over Anne like a tidal wave. She felt her own eyes beginning to water. "I wasn't alone. My mom and Becky have been amazing, but I missed you, so much." Emma stood up then, crossing the room in 2 quick strides. She pulled Anne into a fierce hug, and Anne melted into the embrace, letting out a sob she hadn't realized she'd been holding back. "I'm here now," Emma murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "And I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, Anne Thompson." They spent the next few hours talking, laughing, and crying. Anne told Emma everything. About the moment Becky caught her trying on clothes, about the conversation with her mother, about the months of treatments and training. Emma listened with rapt attention, asking questions and offering support. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Anne's room, Emma glanced at her watch. "Oh, wow! I should probably get going. My mom's going to wonder where I've disappeared to." Anne felt a pang of disappointment. Now that she had her best friend back, she didn't want to let her go. "Yeah, of course. Thanks for everything, Em." Emma smiled, pulling Anne in for another hug. "Thank you for trusting me with this. And hey, maybe we can hang out tomorrow. I want to hear all about your college plans." Anne tensed slightly at the mention of college, but she nodded. "Sure, that sounds great." After Emma left, Anne flopped back onto her bed, her mind whirling. The reunion with her best friend had gone better than she could have ever hoped, but it had also brought all her anxieties about the future rushing back to the surface. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, Becky was shaking her awake. "Hey, sleepyhead, Mom says dinner's ready." Anne blinked groggily, sitting up. "What time is it?" "Just past 7. So, Spill, how'd it go with Emma?" A smile spread across Anne's face. It was amazing. She was so understanding, Beck. I can't believe I was so scared to tell her. Becky grinned, pulling Anne to her feet. See? I told you everything would work out. Now, come on, I'm starving and Mom made lasagna. Dinner was a lively affair, with Anne recounting her conversation with Emma to her mother and sister. As they cleared the table afterward, her mother broached the subject Anne had been dreading. So, honey, have you given any more thought to college? The deadline for confirming your place at State is coming up soon. Anne tensed, focusing intently on loading the dishwasher. I don't know, Mom. It's all so overwhelming. Her mother leaned against the counter, her expression gentle but firm. Anne, I know you're scared, but you can't put your life on hold forever. You're brilliant and you deserve to pursue your dreams. But what if? No what ifs, Becky interjected, closing the refrigerator door with a flourish. You're going to go to college, kick butt in all your classes, and show everyone how awesome Anne Thompson is. End of story. Anne couldn't help but laugh at her sister's determination. Is that so? Yep, Becky said, popping the P sound. And if anyone gives you trouble, they'll have to answer to me. Their mother shook her head, but she was smiling. While I hope it doesn't come to that, your sister's right about one thing, Anne. You are awesome, and you shouldn't let fear hold you back. Anne looked between her mother and sister, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. Okay, she said softly. Okay, I'll do it. I'll confirm my place at State. The next morning, Anne woke early, a mixture of excitement and nervousness churning in her stomach. She dressed carefully in a flowy floral skirt and a soft cream sweater, taking extra time with her makeup and hair. Today was the day she would officially accept her place at State University. As she made her way downstairs, she could hear voices coming from the kitchen. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, recognizing Emma's laugh mingling with Becky's. Morning, everyone, she said, entering the kitchen. Emma turned, a bright smile lighting up her face. There she is, ready for our big day out? Anne raised an eyebrow. Our what now? Becky grinned, waving a piece of toast in the air. Emma and I have decided that you need a proper welcome to college shopping spree. New clothes, new supplies, the works. But I haven't even accepted my place yet, Anne protested weakly. Her mother appeared behind her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Which is why your first stop is going to be my office to use the computer. After that, you girls can hit the mall. Anne felt a rush of affection for her family and her best friend. They believed in her, even when she struggled to believe in herself. Okay, she said, a smile spreading across her face. Let's do this. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activity. Anne confirmed her place at State University, feeling a mix of terror and exhilaration as she clicked the submit button. Then, true to their word, Emma and Becky whisked her off to the mall. They spent hours trying on clothes, debating the merits of different notebooks, and laughing over ridiculous dorm room decorations. By the time they collapsed into chairs at the food court, laden with bags, Anne felt more like herself than she had in months. Oh my God, Emma groaned, taking a big bite of her burger. I forgot how exhausting shopping with you two could be. Becky snorted, stealing one of Anne's fries. Please, you love it. Admit it, you missed us. Emma's expression softened as she looked at Anne. Yeah, I really did. Anne felt a lump form in her throat. I missed you too, Em. Both of you, she added, nudging Becky with her elbow. As they finished their meal, Anne's phone buzzed with a text. She pulled it out, her eyes widening as she read the message. Everything okay? Emma asked, noticing her expression. Anne nodded slowly. Yeah, it's from State. They want me to come in next week for a meeting with the Dean of Students. Something about discussing my unique situation. Becky frowned. That sounds ominous. Want me to come with you and glare menacingly? Anne laughed, some of the tension easing from her shoulders. Thanks, but I think I need to do this on my own. It's probably just to talk about housing arrangements and stuff. Emma reached across the table, squeezing Anne's hand. You've got this, Anne. And remember, we're all here for you, no matter what." The next week passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Anne pored over State University's policies on transgender students, practiced her story in the mirror, and tried on at least a dozen outfits before settling on a simple, professional-looking dress in a deep burgundy. The morning of the meeting dawned bright and clear. Anne's mother insisted on driving her, despite Anne's protests that she could manage on her own. "I know you can, honey," her mom said as they pulled into the parking lot. "But humor your old mom, okay? I want to be here for you." Anne felt a rush of gratitude. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." The dean's office was intimidating, all dark wood and leather-bound books, but Dean Harris, a tall woman with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair, immediately put Anne at ease. "Thank you for coming in, Miss Thompson," she said, gesturing for Anne to take a seat. "I wanted to meet with you personally to discuss how we can best support you during your time at State." Anne blinked, surprised by the dean's friendly tone. "Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure what to expect." Dean Harris smiled. "State University is committed to providing a safe and inclusive environment for all our students. We've worked hard to implement policies and resources for our transgender students, but I always like to meet individually to ensure we're meeting each student's specific needs." They spent the next hour discussing housing options. Anne could choose between a private room or rooming with other female students, name changes on official documents, and available counseling services. By the time Anne left the office, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Her mother was waiting in the hallway, anxiety clear on her face. "How did it go, honey?" Anne surprised herself by breaking into a wide grin. "It was great, Mom. Really great. I think I'm going to be okay here." The rest of the summer flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. Anne threw herself into getting ready for college, alternating between excitement and terror. Emma and Becky were constant presences, helping her shop for dorm supplies and distracting her when the anxiety became overwhelming. Before she knew it, move-in day had arrived. Anne stood in her bedroom, surrounded by boxes and suitcases, taking one last look around. So much had changed in the past year. It was hard to believe she was the same person who had graduated high school just months ago. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Her mother stood in the doorway, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" Anne took a deep breath, smoothing down her favorite sundress. "As ready as I'll ever be." The drive to campus was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. As they pulled up to her dorm, Anne spotted Emma and Becky waiting by the entrance, each holding a box of her belongings. "Surprise!" Becky called as Anne climbed out of the car. "You didn't think we'd let you move in without us, did you?" Anne felt tears prick at her eyes. "You guys are the best, you know that?" Emma grinned, shifting her box to one hip so she could pull Anne into a one-armed hug. "We know. Now come on, let's get you settled in your new home." The next few hours passed in a blur of unpacking, arranging, and last-minute trips to the campus store for forgotten items. By the time everything was in place, Anne's tiny dorm room felt surprisingly like home. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the window, Anne's mother cleared her throat. "Well, I suppose we should be heading out. Let you get settled in." The reality of the moment hit Anne like a ton of bricks. This was it. She was really doing this. She was going to college as herself as Anne. The enormity of it all threatened to overwhelm her. Her mother must have sensed her distress because she pulled Anne into a fierce hug. "Oh, my brave girl," she murmured. "I am so proud of you." Anne clung to her mother, inhaling the familiar scent of her perfume. "I'm scared, Mom," she whispered. Her mother pulled back, cupping Anne's face in her hands. "I know, sweetheart, but you are strong and smart and beautiful. You can do this. And remember, we're only a phone call away if you need us." Becky joined the hug, squeezing them both tightly. "Yeah, and if anyone gives you trouble, just tell them your badass sister will come kick their butt." Anne laughed through her tears. "Thanks, Beck." As her mother and sister prepared to leave, Emma hung back. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay?" Anne nodded, wiping at her eyes. "Yeah, I think so. It's just a lot, you know?" Emma smiled, pulling her into a hug. "I know, but you've got this, Anne. And hey, I'm just across campus if you need anything. Day or night, okay?" "Okay," Anne whispered. "Thanks, Em." After one last round of hugs and goodbyes, Anne found herself alone in her dorm room. She sank onto her bed, running her hand over the soft comforter she and Becky had picked out together. For a moment, the silence felt oppressive, but then she heard laughter from the hallway, the sound of other students settling into their new homes. She thought of Dean Harris's kind smile, of her mother's unwavering support, of Becky's fierce protectiveness and Emma's steadfast friendship. Anne stood up, smoothing down her dress. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and opened her door. The hallway was bustling with activity, other freshmen moving in and introducing themselves. A girl across the hall caught her eye, offering a friendly wave. "Hi, I'm Megan. Are you in 305? Anne felt a smile spread across her face. "Yeah, I am. I'm Anne. It's nice to meet you." As she stepped into the hallway, ready to meet her new neighbors and begin this new chapter of her life, Anne felt a sense of peace settle over her. She was Anne Thompson, college freshman, and she was exactly where she was meant to be. The first few weeks of college were a whirlwind of new experiences for Anne. She threw herself into her classes, relishing the challenge of college-level coursework. Her favorite was an advanced calculus class where the professor's enthusiasm for mathematics was infectious. Between classes, Anne slowly began to make friends. Her roommate, Megan, turned out to be a bubbly art major who didn't bat an eye when Anne nervously explained her situation. "Cool," Megan had said with a shrug. "Want to grab coffee and tell me about your transition? I'm thinking about doing a series on identity for my midterm project." That conversation had led to late nights in their dorm room, sharing stories and laughing over Megan's attempts to sketch Anne. "Hold still," Megan would complain, eraser shavings scattered across her sketch pad. "I'm trying to capture your essence." Anne found herself settling into a routine. Mornings were for classes, afternoons for studying in the library, or grabbing coffee with Emma, who was always eager to hear about Anne's day. Evenings often found her in the common room of her dorm, playing board games or watching movies with her new friends. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of discomfort, like when she had to explain to her academic advisor why her high school transcripts were under a different name, or the time a guy in her English class asked her out, and she panicked, unsure how to handle the situation. But for every difficult moment, there were a dozen wonderful ones. The rush of pride when she aced her first college exam, the warmth of belonging when her study group insisted she join them for a late-night pizza run, the quiet joy of walking across campus, the fall leaves crunching under her boots, and realizing that she felt completely, utterly herself. One chilly October evening, Anne found herself sitting on a bench outside the library, lost in thought. She had just finished a long study session and was enjoying the crisp air before heading back to her dorm. "Mind if I join you?" Anne looked up to see a tall, lanky guy with kind brown eyes and a mop of curly hair. She recognized him from her calculus class. Mike, she thought his name was. "Sure," she said, scooting over to make room. Mike sat down, pulling a thermos out of his backpack. "Want some hot chocolate? I always bring extra on cold nights." Anne hesitated for a moment before nodding. "That sounds great, thanks." They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, sipping the rich, warm liquid. Finally, Mike spoke. "So Anne, right? You're killing it in calc. Any chance you'd want to study together sometime?" Anne felt a flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with the hot chocolate. Was he asking her out? Or just looking for a study partner? She realized she had been quiet for too long when Mike started to look uncomfortable. "Sorry," he said quickly. "If you're not interested, that's totally cool. I just thought—" "No," Anne interrupted, perhaps a bit too loudly. She lowered her voice. "I mean, yes, I'd like that. To study together, I mean." Mike's face broke into a wide grin. "Great. How about tomorrow after class? We could grab coffee and go over the problem set." Anne nodded, a smile spreading across her own face. "That sounds perfect." As they finished their hot chocolate and parted ways, Anne felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had never been on a date, if this even was a date, as Anne. What if Mike found out about her past? What if he reacted badly? But as she walked back to her dorm, she thought about how far she had come. She thought about her mother's unwavering support, Becky's fierce protectiveness, Emma's steadfast friendship. She thought about Megan's easy acceptance and the kindness of her professors and classmates. Anne took a deep breath of the cool night air, feeling it fill her lungs. She was Anne Thompson, college student, daughter, sister, friend. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to add girlfriend to that list. With a spring in her step, Anne headed home, ready to face whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. After all, she had already overcome so much. What was one little coffee date compared to that? As she entered her dorm room, Megan looked up from her sketch pad. "Hey, you're back late. Everything okay?" Anne couldn't keep the smile off her face. "Everything's great. Actually, I think I might have a date tomorrow." Megan's squeal of excitement could probably be heard down the hall. As her roommate peppered her with questions, Anne felt a warmth spread through her chest. This, she realized, was what it felt like to truly be herself. And it was beautiful. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.